Hey everybody, it's Nat from Teen Talk. C'est Nathalie de Communicado. J'espère que vous allez bien. I hope you are doing well today. I am back with a new episode because I just reconnected with this wonderful coach. Her name is Sabrina. She is from Siva. Thanks so much for being here, Sabrina.
Thanks for having me, Nat. And it's great to be here, and it'll be fun to
It
get in.
is, absolutely. So Sabrina and I met because of because of TEDx. We
Yes.
were both coaching back in 2020, God, 5 years ago already, with TEDx Laval. And unfortunately, we didn't see that event come to fruition, but we both, well, we're not in the same circle, but we kind of circle in the same circle of people. And I wanted to have this conversation with you, get your viewpoint on the importance of communication, because I know it's something that you work on with your clients. And of course, it's what I do, helping teens really dive deep and figure out, who are they as speakers and why is it important? So I guess that's probably my first question for you is how do you see communication? Like how can we let them know that this is an important piece of their, growing up in adulthood?
Yeah, I mean, communication is huge. And so the first thing when it comes to communication, we tend to think about it in terms of a big talk, like a TED talk or like a
Yeah,
presentation or something that's like this epic, massive event. It doesn't have to be. So communication is everything that happens on a day to day, right? It's
yeah,
all those micro moments. It's how we're interacting, you and I, right now. Are we listening? Are we paying attention to the other person? Are we looking at them? These are all basic skills. So it's about, I think, first and foremost, reframing what communication means.
mm,
And it's funny, I stumbled on an article from Forbes, and they were talking about how communication is seen as the number one demanded skill on LinkedIn. So recruiters, HR professionals, headhunters that are looking for people on LinkedIn, regardless of the position, they're looking for communication skill set because they know that's what's going to make or break that
yeah.
candidate. So it's huge.
And I have to say, it was when the whole AI, what popped in my mind right now is when the whole AI thing started coming out. The director at my daughter's school was very excited about it. And I thought, oh my God, am I going to lose my job? Because I saw it as a bit, not a threat, but I didn't understand it enough to say that how is this going to help me? I mean, I use it all the time now for myself, for my students, to help them better communicate. We worked on TED Ed Talks last year, and one of the girls said, I have this great idea, but I'm not sure how to word it. And I said, okay, well, let's put in what you're thinking and let's see what it pops out. Well, it was perfect, right? And I think that, the tools that we have now are not the tools that I had back in the day.
We're
And
dating ourselves.
I know I'm not gonna tell you, but I hid my wisdom this weekend, so you don't know. But communication has evolved so much. And one of the things I preach, and I really do preach about it with students, any school I go to, is that you communicate morning, noon, and night every moment. So when I started my business almost 10 years ago, I created a quote that said, every opportunity is a speaking opportunity. How do you seize it? Right? How do you seize every moment? Now, it doesn't mean that when we're talking to our best friends, we have to be in this, like, framing everything perfectly. But it certainly means if you have the opportunity to step forward and position yourself to be seen and heard, how are you going to do that?
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes we stop ourselves from being seen and heard because of the fear of judgment, the fear of like, well, what will they think? Will they like me? Will it make sense? Will I be succinct?
Mm,
And all these questions, we stop ourselves from sharing our wisdom by sharing
yeah.
our personality with the world. And so we're doing a disservice to others and to ourselves. And it's often because of like, what will they think? And
Absolutely. And I find now with technology, and correct me or if I'm wrong, but technology now is taking over so much of how we communicate that this art form of speaking
yeah.
has to be regenerated almost, or it has to be, pushed. And that's what I'm doing when I'm showing up in a classroom. It's like, no, they use paper and pencils, and they hate me because I'm like, yeah, we're going back old school. You don't need a computer, you don't need a Google slide. You just need to take what's up here and put it on a piece of paper. And that's because that's where, really where it starts. And I know I can't quote a study, but I know I've read that the whole idea of pen to paper is so much more powerful than, the community that the typing out of the ideas. So what for you, like, what are the things you see in your business or with your clients that professionals are, maybe struggling with? Because I think teens need to understand that this is not just a kid problem. This is an adult problem too. Like there's a lot of people that struggle with, having to present and having to communicate.
You're right. And it doesn't go away. So it starts when
No.
we're young,
Yeah.
and as we grow up, we need to continue speaking up. And a lot of clients will come to me and say, hey, um, I get the sense that my colleagues don't really connect when I speak. They don't really pay attention, or I don't get buy-in. Um, I want to have more impact, but I don't want to sound
Mm,
I don't want to sound
yeah.
right. And so it's really about, again, trying to adapt the personalities that we have to this world.
Yeah.
And like what are they anticipating to hear, and how can I adjust my language to
Hmm.
these people? And so the problem never ever goes away. I would say though, if you practice when you're young and you start to just speak up and maybe not say it perfectly the first time, but it's getting into the habit. It's like learning a new language. It's
Yeah.
like do it, mess up, right? And it becomes part of your identity. So you
Yeah.
have the ability, even in high school, to change and say, well, next year I want to show up as a different person and I'm just going to speak up a little bit more. And that becomes the new you. And people forget about the old you. And I
Yeah.
think it's a skill set. And the more you do when you're young, the more it's going to serve you as you're getting older and you're working in business and industry.
Now, is this something you struggled with when you were a kid?
Oh, totally.
Oh,
Um,
me too.
yeah, and that, your pain becomes your purpose, right? And so
Yes.
I was the shy kid in the classroom that was afraid to put up her hand, afraid to ask the wrong question. I was that child. And one day, and what changed it for me, what started changing it for me, was a teacher that during parent-teacher interview, the teacher said to my parents, Sabrina will never make it in life if she doesn't learn to speak up. She
Oh,
just will
wow.
not make it. Do something. She's helpful with her, colleagues. She tries to help the other students, but she does not help herself because she doesn't participate. You need to do something. And so they encouraged me to start getting more and more involved. So I started doing public speaking competitions, and the
Oh,
very thing
wow.
that scared the death out of me, right? Um, just to practice.
Yeah.
And then it became fun. And it was like this fear that was replaced with excitement.
Yeah.
And, sometimes hearing just positive feedback from people saying, hey, you were really animated. It was really fun listening to you. That became my new reality, my new reference. And so the benchmark was, well, now you speak.
Yeah.
And,
I
so
love that. I
yeah.
love that. I think for me, I was very, very shy all through high school, like middle school, high school. When I went to college and I did my early childhood at Vanier. When you're with kids, they don't really care about what you're doing. You can make a fool of yourself and they don't care. And I seemed like the shell sort of broke. And because I was with peers that, we did and loved all the same thing, I seemed to flourish in that. And somewhere along the way, it just grew. And through different jobs, I got, training opportunities and to stand on a stage and master these, different skills. And like you said, you have the fear, but it flips to excitement and like this, like, almost a rush, right? And
Yeah.
of course, my students are not convinced that there's a rush going on when they have to do it. I'll say probably 8 out of 10 students put their hand up that they really, they'll say to me, they actually say to me, Miss Natalie, we really like you. We just don't like what you teach. And I'd say, okay, well, at least sound personal. But then it just takes one student like this fall who said to me, stopped me in the, hallway and said, Miss Nat, I just want you to know that you helped me, feel better about this. And that was like my job is done kind of
Yeah.
thing. What would be your like top couple of tips, if a mom or dad is watching and wondering like, what can we do to help them? I know your parents helped you, but is there something specific that you would recommend?
I would say encourage them to share. Always ask open-ended questions.
Yeah.
That forces people to answer to give you a bit more meat. If you if you notice that your child is answering in a very curt manner, like ask for more details. Ask them what it felt like, what it tasted like. Did they fear? Did they what was the sensation? So ask for those details. Those are the very details that when we build a story,
Yeah.
when we set the scene, we want to be injecting in our story anyway, because that's what people connect with, right? We're all storytellers. And so the more detail you can add, the more interesting your story. So this is good
Hmm.
practice as well. So asking those type of open-ended questions, asking for more detail, uh, and I say, a lot of us are just fear that criticism all the time, is that fear of like not being enough, not doing good enough. And so being very cognizant as a
Yeah.
parent to not come down on them too hard if you didn't get the response you were hoping to get. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's
understand that. I just experienced here at our school, we do a presentation day every 6 weeks. And my daughter, who's very outspoken and apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. As parents, our expectations are a little higher because we know that she can do well, like that
yeah,
she can. And I might have been a little bit hard, but only because I know that she can do more.
yeah.
And I think with more practice, she would have achieved like just a little bit at that next level. But what I wanted to add to what you were saying was my husband's an author, and he's always telling me you have to show and not just tell. Because in stories, sometimes we have a tendency to just tell them what happened, but we're not showing and describing and bringing them into the story with us. So that's what I'm trying to bring to them is like, show me that story that you want. Show me how it felt. Show me the picture that you lived or experienced so that your audience will also feel that way. So yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm glad that we aligned on that one. I would love to know to like what is your take on tech when it comes to like because my I find now when I'm visiting schools, oh, can we use Google Slides? Oh, can we do PowerPoint or even CapCut and all of these apps? What is your take? Like, are they useful? Should we move away from them? I mean, obviously, I know sometimes it's a requirement from a teacher, but do we really need them?
I think what you do with your students, Natalie, like the pen and paper, is
Yeah.
probably the best way to start the higher level idea. And you can get it on a post-it. And sometimes I
Yeah.
prep for talks like that. I'm like, can I get this on a post-it? And if I can, I know that it's solid. And then I could use the tech to build. As
Yeah.
you had
Okay.
said, it's a great tool. AI, all these different tools have disrupted the way we communicate, but it's about seeing, do we use them in conjunction with our ideas, or
Yes.
do we use them to
Yes.
replace the very thing that we do as humans? And that's something. So I would say, use tech, use AI like you would salt when
Because
you're cooking.
they're supportive tools. They're
There's
there to support you. They're not there to do the presentation, is what I'm constantly saying.
Yeah,
Because I think that it's never going to go away. We just have to use it in a wise manner.
yeah. And
Um,
I was going to add, we say
Yeah,
this as well for, for professionals that have their PowerPoints and they rely heavily on this PowerPoint to deliver the message. And we always tell them, you are the message. The
you are the
PowerPoint
message. Yes.
message. Like, remember that you're the message and not the numbers on the slide and not all that stuff. And if you rely on that, you're going to lose your audience because they're going to be reading that stuff and not listening to you. So it's also being very choosy with what you put out
Yeah,
as you're speaking, right? To not
absolutely.
distract. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I am the lead organizer here in Cabarete for TEDx Cabarete in May of this year. And I chose no tech. So our setting is in this beautiful event space, but it's like kind of jungle-like. And I thought, I don't want any screens. I don't want any of the tech. I just want the speakers to be like organically in that space. So no tech. And some people chose to not apply because we didn't have tech. Imagine that. Chose to not apply, which I thought was interesting, but it's a prerogative, right? If you feel like that you need the tech there, that's fine. But I say my speakers, I wanted the speakers to just like be the reason why people are sitting there and listening to them.
I think
So
that's going to be so powerful. And it really
I know.
pushes people way beyond their comfort zone because, like you said, we rely on it so much.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to get in touch with you, they love what you had to say. What do you got going on lately? How do they get in touch?
So they could find me on LinkedIn. They could go on my website if they'd like, sivamarketing.ca. They could, if you just type my name, you will find me. Like, I'm not that hard to find, so they can definitely find me there.
We're gonna drop your info into the description of the video so that they can easily find you. But I'm super grateful that you did this with me today because I'm sometimes not that I doubt myself, but sometimes I wonder what are other people thinking about this idea of communication? Because for me it's a constant, it's an everyday thing. And sometimes I feel like I sound like a broken record. But hey, when other people say it, then I know I'm not off track.
Well, we're all broken records together, Natalie. Maybe that's what we are.
I
But
love it. I
yeah.
love it. So if you are a mom and dad and you're listening to this, thanks so much for staying in and staying tuned. If you think your teen needs help, please reach out to me. I will drop the email that and calendar link where you can book a free call. We can just have a chat and, you know, map out how your son or daughter could be helped in this area of communication. Whatever you choose to do, I hope you have an incredible day. And thank you again, Sabrina, for doing this. See you soon. Next
Thank you,
episode.
Natalie.
Bye
Bye.
for now.